Greetings. This is positivologist Lynette Turner. Come on in, have a seat on your favorite couch, your favorite chair, grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. The positivologist is in the house. As a positivologist, I work with individuals and groups of people to help you chart the most positive, productive, practical life possible. I am a certified Angel Speak facilitator, a dream teacher with the Robert Moss School of Active Dreaming. I am a positivity life coach, a Reiki practitioner, and a sound healer. And I'm also an ordained interfaith minister. So I'm here to serve you in a wide range of ways. You can connect with me on my website at www.positivebliss.com. And while you're there, sign up for my free weekly positivity message. We can all use a little positivity now and then. So this show is all about how to live your life from a positive perspective. We all have challenges and problems that we have to deal with. People often say to me, you know, why are you so positive all the time? You're so happy all the time. You must not have any challenges. Well, I do. But I choose to walk towards the light as I deal with these challenges instead of jumping into a dark hole. And we can all do that. We all have the ability and have the possibilities to do that. So in this show, an array of guests join me to share their expertise on a wide range of topics, from their unique perspectives, from their knowledge and expertise and training. And I am extremely delighted with the guest that I have tonight, which is CJ Golden. And I'll have her tell you a little bit about herself in a moment. But she's a pretty dynamic lady, and she's had a really, I'd say, very adventurous life. She was a speech therapist. She had her own diagnostic center. She was a professional actress. So she has a deep appreciation and love for the arts, and she's an author. And tonight we're going to be talking about her book, which I'm delighted to say that I have right here, Reflections from Beyond. I had the opportunity to go to a session where CJ was talking about the experience of writing this book and the gentleman she met whose life story, whose experiences she was sharing through the book. Near-death experiences are really fascinating, and you may have either experienced this yourself or know someone who has, or you probably have at least heard about it or talked to somebody about it. So we're very fortunate tonight to have somebody who has really delved deeply into this topic and has a lot of knowledge that she can share and answer a lot of those questions. It's kind of mysterious sometimes when you think about near-death experiences. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome CJ Golden as my guest this evening. Hi, CJ.
Well, hi, Lynette. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing? Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you. Yes. How did we get to 2015?
I know. Well, the time flies, doesn't it?
It's amazing. The older you get, you'll find out in like a lot of years when you catch up to me.
Oh,
time goes even faster.
I'm closer than you think, but it's interesting because my mom used to always say that the older you get, the faster the time goes. That's what she used to always say. Because when you're young, time seems to drag, and then when you're older, it's like you don't have enough of it to do everything you want to do.
Never enough.
Never enough time. But here we are in the right place at the right time to talk about a fascinating subject. But before we do, I'd love you to just take a few minutes and tell our viewers all about your exciting self, and also tell them how they can reach you if they'd like to reach you after the show.
My exciting self? Well, I guess it's been an exciting life so far. I was always someone who delved into spirituality, who looked beyond the everyday, who agreed with you that attitude really colors the relationship that we have with all of life around us. And in that realm, I delved deeply into Taoism, which is a Chinese philosophy of acceptance. Accept, acknowledge, understand that life flows, it goes where it's going to go, and it's up to us to take the path that we're given and do with it what is best for us. That path has led me down many roads. I'm very fortunate. As you said, I started out on the straight and narrow. I was a speech therapist. Every kid I taught ended up with a slight lisp and a Brooklyn accent, unfortunately. I was an actor. I went out to LA. I was in New York. It's been a lot of fun with a lot of exploring and a lot of learnings. And one of the latest experiences was when I followed my husband and a group of his buddies down through the Delmarva Peninsula. That's Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. And that is where I came upon, my path brought me to a gentleman named Tracy LaCroix. Story to be continued. As far as where people can reach me, I'm at cjgolden.com, and my email is author, AUTHOR, at cjgolden.com.
Wonderful.
And now we go from here.
Yeah, there you go. Wonderful. And we'll do that again at the end. We want to make sure people can reach out to you. So, CJ, I was really captivated when I was able to hear you talk about the book in person.
Thank you.
And, I myself have never had a near-death experience, although I've heard of other people doing it and known a few people who have, but it just seems like such an amazing experience to go through that and then be able to come out on the other side and be able to talk about it. So tell us a little bit. Let's start with, if someone asks you what is a near-death experience, what would you say?
Oh my, it's I'm going to call it a trip to the next realm. Really, it's a peek at what is waiting for us when we leave this life here on Earth. It's the opportunity to kind of open the doors, open the gates, peek into heaven, and see the beauty that's waiting for us.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. Peek into heaven. I want to try that.
Yes, as long as I'm ready, as long as I'm ready to come back. Although I will tell you, and we might get to this later on in more detail, that those who have come back without requesting the return visit are often very unhappy. Right. What they see up there in that other realm is so filled with love and joy and peace and beauty that it's where they want to stay. That's nice to think about.
The definition of bliss, it truly sounds like that when you hear people talk about what their experience was. Well, CJ, tell us what it was about Tracy's story that compelled you to want to be able to share it with so many other people.
He was so open about it. As I had said, I was following my husband. He and his two buddies were cycling down the Delmarva Peninsula. I'm riding behind in my little red car because I love the experience, but I feel better on four wheels than I do on two. And we went in, Joe and I went into this little hotel. It was a hotel we weren't really anticipating staying at, but there we were. We met the innkeeper. He introduced himself to us as Tracy LaCroix. This was in May of 2014. We talked about our backgrounds. He had only been at the hotel in Cape Charles, Virginia for 5 months. No, sorry, I think it was only 5 weeks. And so he was new to the area, I was new to the area, and I started chatting him up, where do you come from? And he said, well, I lived in Springfield, Massachusetts, and by the way, that's where I died last year. And just as the silence is here.
How does that conversation?
The air was sucked out of the room. I obviously heard him correctly. Near-death experience. I'm a writer. There is no way I'm letting that get past me.
And there's no mistakes, right? The synchronicity of the people we meet,
Absolutely.
It's for a purpose. I mean, when things like that happen, I always think the powers that be brought you together for a reason.
I'm convinced of that. As a matter of fact, I'm of the belief that rather than thinking of a higher being our bus driver driving us down the path, I think that higher being is really our tour guide. We arrive at a spot. There I was in front of Tracy LaCroix, and the higher power was saying, here, CJ, here's Tracy LaCroix. But there's a great ice cream shop next door. You could go explore that too. No, I was foregoing the ice cream at that point.
Yeah.
It's
like the ice cream, the treat.
Pardon? Yeah. No, but
like the treat of an ice cream.
Within the pages of the book, Reflections from Beyond, I explain all of the pieces, all of the synchronicity. I don't believe any of it was coincidence. All of it that brought me to Tracy, including the fact that Tracy asked me where I live. I live in Newtown, Connecticut. This was what I believe 3 months, 5 months maybe after the tragedy that took place at our Sandy Hook school. And Tracy said, "That's why you are here. You are here to bring back my message to your friends and neighbors."
Yeah. Oh,
You don't pass up. You don't pass that up.
no, it's a gift. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a gift that you have the skill and the expertise to be a storyteller, to tell the story. It's a gift that you met when you did. It's a gift that the time was perfect for you to share this message with the world. So
exactly,
all is
exactly.
in a divine order, right? All is in divine order. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's part of my message as well, is beyond the near-death experience, which is in itself an amazing journey, for us while we're here to keep our eyes open and don't be dismissive of things that are quote-unquote mere coincidence.
Right, right. Good. Okay, CJ, talk a little
Okay.
bit, if you will, about what your subject has said, or other people have said, it feels like to have this experience of a near death. What do people say it feels like, or looks like, or tastes like, or all of that?
Yeah, there's a commonality, although each experience is unique. And I'm convinced that each experiencer brings with him or her their own earthly beliefs. Ergo, someone might see or hear angels, someone might see or hear a God, someone might see or hear those who have passed before them. Some, as in Tracy's case, knew immediately that he was dead. He was convinced that he was gone, he was no longer on this earth. Now, to be fair, this is a clinical death. His heart had stopped pumping. His brain was active. And in that clinical death, he didn't see anything else around him of this plane. Some see themselves floating above and see what's happening in the room that they've that they vacated. Tracy saw a path which led to a bright light. He did not hear angels. He did not see those who passed before him. He was at great peace, knowing he was surrounded by unconditional love. He did feel something stop him. And in some way, some manner other than speech, he was told that he could enter into heaven or he could come back to earth and finish his work.
Wow, he got to choose.
He got to choose. I believe I read, don't hold me to this, about 50% of the near-death experiencers get to choose. Those who don't, as I said before, including friends of mine who have, since I've written the book, have confessed, I had a near-death experience too.
Mm-hmm.
People are still shy about talking about it in many cases. But it was a difficult choice for Tracy to make. And yet he chose to come back. He did not want to leave his wife Alice so quickly. He wasn't ready yet to do that. He had no idea when he was told to come back and finish his earthly work. What? What is my work? He's finding out now that his work is to share the experience.
Right. So how would he say his life has changed, or he has changed as a result of having going through this experience?
Oh, in so many ways. Tracy was your typical dude, a high-pressure business guy. He kept trying different religions. He's a lapsed Catholic, never bought into that when he was a kid. He tried Buddhism, you name it, he was searching. Big guy, would look like a big rough guy.
Yeah.
The sweetest pussycat. And yet, after the near-death experience, his whole being changed. He softened. He started to understand the spiritual side of life, the spirituality that surrounds us all. He recognized, whereas in the past he always thought of himself as not a good person at all, he recognized now that he was a very good person. He made some bad choices.
Right.
He made very poor choices. Not that they physically hurt anyone, but they were not choices that were best for him or those he loved. That was, I believe, the biggest change in Tracy, other than his mission now, which is a mission that many near-death experiencers share, the mission of sharing that which they have learned on this journey.
With other people. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
You also hear people say that they just have this, literally this new appreciation for every day. That they get
Yes,
up and no matter what the issues are, what the problems are, they say, but you know what? I'm here. I'm alive. I get to get up and, hug my wife or my sister or feel the dirt under my feet. And so there's this heightened appreciation for life.
absolutely. Actually, and one way that Tracy shows that is in his photography. I'm not sure he ever picked up a camera prior to the near-death experience. Perhaps he did, but he's now become an avid photographer. His work is getting better and better and better. And I'll see photos that he's taken of a butterfly on a twig or a close-up of a flower, things that he never bothered to look at before.
Probably
The old,
noticed.
slow down and smell the flowers.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what he
He's
does.
literally doing it.
Yeah.
Literally doing it. So, CJ, how do you think people know that they're actually having a near-death experience versus a hallucination or their imagination?
Well, here's the deal. Tracy knew what he was experiencing was real. He intuitively knew that. He did not put the term near-death experience to it until I gave it to him. He knew of near-death experiences.
Right.
And when I said to him, well, you had a near-death experience, I assume, and he said, oh, yeah, that's what it was. There's great debate over the validity of near-death experiences. It's not something that can be proven scientifically. We're still in a spot in our development as a race of human beings that if we can't prove it, it ain't real.
Right.
Okay, so be careful where you walk because we're going to walk off the edge of the earth. Oh, wait a minute, they proved that one, didn't they, that it's round? It's
Right.
Tracy, like many, have to just deal with those who would say, well, it was a hallucination. A hallucination might be life-changing, but you don't remember it in the detail that someone remembers a near-death experience. A dream is remembered in detail, but it's not life-changing. Therefore, the near-death experience that one remembers in such great detail and then goes and changes one's whole perspective on life and possibly their personality, how can you call that a dream or a hallucination? I don't think so. I don't see it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I have a friend, actually, her name is Maggie Callanan, and she's written extensively on, she was a nurse, a hospice nurse, and she is one of the women who started IANDS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Maggie spoke to this and said, well, do you believe in love? And I said, sure. She said, prove it.
Right. I mean, there's such richness in the reality of, to me, what we experience in a near-death experience, and sometimes in dreaming, depending on what kind of dreaming you're having, is just as real as being able to sit here and touch this chair.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's literally just a knowing. So sometimes if a person is of a mind where if I can't see it, touch it, feel it, smell it in my human sort of way, it can't be real. I think we're just missing out on this whole other landscape of reality. It's just on a different level. It's on a different vibration, but it's just as real as this sort of earthbound life that we walk around and experience, don't you think?
I absolutely agree. And yet there are those who have questioned me when I've gone out to speak, and they said, well, you've not had a near-death experience. You know, how do you know it's real? Lynette, I have two choices. I can choose to question. Question is good. But I can choose to say, no, it doesn't exist because nobody proved it to me. Or I can say, until it's been disproved, until someone tells me, no way, I choose to believe. I choose to believe, keeping my eyes open, not going into anything blindly, and being ready to listen to both sides of the arguments. I choose to believe because it gives me so much comfort.
Right.
It brings to me a feeling that that helps me get through my day-to-day here.
Yeah. What a gift that is to have.
Oh
And
my,
everybody can have this with an open mind and open heart. Everyone can have that. And with people like you sharing these experiences, it only helps all of us to open our heart a little wider, you know.
That's why I jumped so quickly onto the Tracy story after I finished interviewing him, which I did the morning after I met him. I said, you know, this is a book.
Yeah.
Aren't you considering writing a book? He said, I'm not a writer. I was waiting for the correct person to come along.
And there you were.
Here I am.
Yeah. So I understand that Tracy's actually been sort of given messages on his journey. And what kind of messages has he been given?
What he learned, it was not, well, it's interesting because when we say given messages, nothing was spoken. Nothing was, hey, Tracy, here's a message you have to bring back. He said, I don't know how I knew things, I just knew them. And as I did more and more research into near-death experiences, I'm seeing that phrase over and over and over again. I don't know how I knew it, I just did. And what he learned, and what Tracy brings to us, is that God is a God that gives us choices. God might put us in certain positions, or he might show us certain things. Ultimately, the choice is up to us to do with that which we feel is best. As I said, Tracy was given choices in the past. He didn't necessarily make the right choices. Doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes now. But it means that he tries harder, he thinks more about the choices that he makes. God is a God of kindness, and all he asks for us when we're here on earth is to be kind. Wouldn't think that's so hard, would you? But it evidently seems to be for so many. And God is a God who allows us and wants us to honor him in any way that works best for us. God is a God that wants us to follow our own religious beliefs, to be open and free about how we react to a God, whoever that God might be. And Lynette, I don't know if people are seeing me, but I'm thinking that you've frozen, you're the standing stock still, or yes, you've lost your internet connection. And here I am, folks. Oh my. So I guess I take over. And it's interesting because I really honored Tracy's story for the fact that he was not pedantic about any particular religious belief or tenet. And that spoke to me greatly. His is a more spiritual message rather than a religious message, a staunchly religious message. That was very refreshing to me. That's something else that was great for me to hear from Tracy LaCroix. And I'm not sure if we need to end the show because I've lost my host. We've all lost our hostess. But I will tell you that it's been an absolute joy having met Tracy LaCroix, having learned from him what I've learned, being able to share his message with those who are open to listening to the message, to being able to share my message of understanding that things come our way and we really shouldn't close ourselves off to it. It's been quite a journey for all of us. And I will end by saying that this is CJ Golden. I thank you for tuning in. If Lynette comes back, then we'll be back on the air, I suspect. If not, I thank you all for checking in and watching. The book is Reflections from Beyond. Am I showing it to you there? There we go, Reflections from Beyond.
I see it.
She's back.
Live TV, folks. I don't know if it's the cold weather here or what, but...
Well, I've been babbling on. I don't know if any of it caught, but
I'm sure
I conducted the show on my own.
Then you're perfect. You're a perfect host. Welcome aboard. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure, but we're back, so we'll just keep floating along. So I'm glad you continued to speak, but I know we were talking about. I know the next thing I was going to ask you was. You talked about how other people have sort of come out of the woodwork now to talk to you about having had this experience. Has that been surprising to you? How has that resonated with you?
It's not been surprising that there are so many people. It's resonated because it keeps, there's comfort in numbers, right? Isn't that the saying? It substantiates. There was a Gallup poll done back in 91 or 92 that cited 13 million Americans having had a near-death experience.
Wow.
92. And those were the ones who acknowledged it at the time.
Think of all the people who didn't know what to call it or haven't said anything to anybody yet.
Yeah, exactly. Matter of fact, Tracy was standing in a grocery store line one day, shortly after I met, just before I met him, and he said he spoke to a woman. He doesn't know what compelled him to turn to this woman, stranger, and say, I had a near-death experience. And the woman said, "Oh, thank you for telling me. I did too, and I thought I was the only one."
Wow.
A friend of mine, several friends have said to me since, I had a near-death experience as well. I think what's happening on several fronts, that this is becoming a topic of conversation that is legitimate. It's okay. You're not looked upon as strange, weird, or crazy. There is the possibility of having more near-death experiences as doctors and surgeons are finding more and more ways to keep someone's heart at least artificially beating.
Right.
While the brain is still functioning. And it's interesting because Tracy's heart had stopped for an hour and a half. An hour and a half.
An incredibly long time. And so, CJ, I know from reading the book that you happen to have had the opportunity to interview some of these doctors. So talk to us about what it was to actually talk to the doctors who were
They were fabulous.
Tracy.
They were fabulous. They were fabulous men. Joseph Flack, Dan Engelman. Dr. Flack made room in his very, very busy calendar for me to go up to Massachusetts, to Springfield, Bay State Medical, and he told me, all the specifics of the surgical and all the medical terms and yada yada. Very little oxygen was going to Tracy's brain. They never thought he would awaken. If he did, certainly he would have brain damage. Nothing. No brain. It was just so amazing. And so Dr. Flack, I looked at him and I said, 2 questions and 2 answers from him that stand out. Dr. Flack, when Tracy woke up and told you he had a near-death experience, what did you think? Now, this is a man medically scientifically trained, and he looked at me and said, "We don't know everything." Wow.
There you go.
Wow. And I looked at him also. I said, it's been hard to pin you down. He was traveling. He's busy. This is a man who, this is good. This is big stuff.
Yeah.
Why did you put aside so much time for me to speak with you? And he said, Tracy has an important message to share, and it's partly my job to help him share it.
Wow.
And then Dr. Engelman,
that's fantastic.
that's the medical, and Dr. Engelman came in, who is Dr. Flack's associate, And I said, okay, does this change the protocol? Will you now work on a patient longer? They don't know. How do you know what's going to happen? Are you
Right.
pumping a heart only to have the person come back neurologically damaged? And Dr. Engelman said, and I wish I had it videoed. He said, just this one guy makes it all worthwhile. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was amazing being with those two
And then
guys.
it was interesting how they said that as they were trying to bring him back, they knew that they were sort of doing this longer than they normally do, but something, someone, some energy, something told them to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
they don't know what. Tracy knows what it was, but no, they just kept plugging away.
right.
Bless them for being not only the wonderfully well trained surgeons that they are, but for being the men that they are. So
Right.
open
Right.
to all possibilities.
You know, I think it's so wonderful because they can set an example for other, high esteemed doctors who are working in this field to just, be a little open-minded, take a little extra time, follow their instincts,
Exactly.
because who knows how many more people are going to be
Yeah.
impacted.
But and yet I understand it really is an ethical dilemma. In our age of first do no harm to the patient, and in our age of do everything you can to keep this patient alive, and in our age of questioning that for very real reasons, there they were in the center of this dilemma and yet, like you said, like Dr. Flack said, something told us to keep going. And what's interesting is just 3 or 4 days ago, I received an email from someone at that hospital who works with the nurses, who is very interested in having me speak to them. You know, the surgical team doesn't always see the patient after they leave.
Right.
It's what happened to him.
Right.
So to be able to share Tracy's story with them is
well, and I would think
great.
your ability to share the story with those in the medical field would just be, there should be a large audience for it. It can be very eye-opening. And
I would think so.
That the doctor said, we don't know everything. Sometimes I think doctors think they're supposed to know everything.
Yes.
Because they're experts and they've gone to school, they've done all the studying. But I think they're human too, right? We're all just trying to figure this out.
We're all figuring it out together.
Right, right.
Exactly. And we're figuring it out with not a whole heck of a lot of information.
Right, right. And certainly not the sort of, like we said, the human sort of I can feel it, touch it information.
Yes.
A long time ago, I adopted sort of a philosophy of, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. I'm sharing my experiences, whether it's out-of-body experience I've had or, something that's happened working with the angels or the dream work. And so I'm here to share that with people, but, I'm not hitting anybody over the head to try to force them to. People come to when they're ready. Everybody's on their own path. And, just to honor whatever path they're on, but what a phenomenal thing when you are able to talk about it and share it with people. I'm just wondering out loud now, if you've had any experience or heard anything from like younger people or children that have had this experience, because I'm thinking that for a young person to have that experience and then to come out of it at a young age and have that day-to-day appreciation for life that people tend to have when they have this experience. Can you imagine a young person growing up their whole life with that attitude of gratitude and that energy of appreciation?
What a concept.
Yes. Yeah.
I've not met anyone. I've met a teenager who certainly has been touched by other realms, but not through a near-death experience. Matter of fact, I met that particular boy the same day that I met you. And I don't remember his name, but he was very open, and we had some wonderful conversations. There is, of course, the book, and then the closely followed by the movie. Is it Heaven is for Real?
Mm-hmm.
And that little boy who had the near-death experience. There are experiencers like Eben Alexander, who was is he a neurosurgeon, I
I
believe?
believe so.
And Eben wrote his book, and that really, thank you, Eben, that really opened the pathway for more conversation about it. As far as having met little kids, young children, I personally haven't, but yeah, that would be quite something. What do they get out of it? What do they understand?
How are
But
they
yes,
changed? All of
it's
that.
got to color. It's got
Right.
to color their lives. It's interesting that I recently underwent surgery, and they were having a heck of a time waking me up. There were two surgeries within a
Oh,
week,
yeah.
and when I heard that, when I finally came to, when I heard what had been going on, I was thinking, "Dang, I could have had a near-death experience." You know,
I was so close to maybe
write
having
another book.
myself. Right, right. Book number 2.
Yeah, it would have been actually, quite honestly, four. Would have been book number four.
Yeah.
But two, yeah,
Well,
two
I
on
guess
near-death
it's
experiences.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't feel like I was really an author after the first book, no, the
right.
second book. But now I'm legit,
Well,
right?
you were definitely an author. Let me tell you, you're a really wonderful storyteller. It's great when you read a book and you feel like you are right there with that person, or even like you're experiencing what that person is experiencing.
Thank
And
you.
so that's
Thank you.
what your ability to storytelling does. So it's really fantastic. So I want to go back a moment to you said you had some people that you actually know, some friends you know, contact you and say, "I had this experience too."
Hmm.
So did they have questions that they asked you, given you had connected with someone else who had this experience, or they were just happy to be able to say, "This is what happened to me"? Um,
Yes. Yeah, they were happy to say, this is what happened to me. They're happy to know that there are others. They're happy to know that there is IANDS out there where people, near-death experiencers, can connect. What I've gleaned most out of it is this the fact that the paths are slightly different.
mhm.
Each experience, as I had said, each experience shares the meat of the experience, they're all slightly different. The one friend looked at me and said, I was forced to come back. I was very, very angry. She went through a major depression. Not that this woman doesn't love her family dearly, but she didn't want to come back. That was the first that I had heard of personally. Uh, that which I'd read. I've read this, but to
Right,
hear it from my friend, and
right,
then I heard it. I was giving a lecture at upstate New York, and one another woman looked at me and said, "I was forced to come back. How dare they bring
yeah.
me back when I
Right.
didn't ask to be brought back?"
Well, you know, you
Wow.
hear a lot about the light and the love and how wonderful it feels. Has anyone, or have you heard of anyone who actually had the near-death experience, but it wasn't pleasant? It wasn't wonderful.
I'm told, I'm told that someone who tries to commit suicide, who is unsuccessful at a suicide attempt, does not have a pleasant near-death experience.
Oh, interesting.
Now, that doesn't mean, I said that, I was at a spiritual center not too long ago, and someone questioned that and said, well, that sure doesn't give us peace of mind if we know someone who's we've lost due to suicide. And I said, well, no, that doesn't mean that the suicide doesn't have a good experience. It just means that those who have come back from an unsuccessful suicide attempt has not had a good experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We don't know. And then somebody said, well, what was the experience from somebody who hasn't come back? And I'm looking like, and I know this?
Right, 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 right. That's just like when someone says They think that if they're in a dream and they're falling, you know, and they hit the ground and you're gonna die. And I'm like, well, don't worry about it, because I mean, you're
Yeah,
not, if you're gone, you're gonna be gone, and God
that's
wouldn't let that.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. You know,
yeah,
I'm not ready to go yet, but
right. But you know what's
I'm
interesting
certainly
though?
not as frightened.
Right, right. I've never had a near-death experience, but I've had out-of-body experiences, and in that out-of-body experience, I also feel that bliss and that light and that love and that, oh, you just want to stay there. Everything is effortless
Yes.
and beautiful and blissful, and there's no pain, there's no worry, and I can literally remember us going, oh, this is really fantastic. Can't I just stay out here? Or then that voice, that power, that be saying, you're not done yet,
Yeah.
to go back. And I believe myself, but whenever I go, it's going to be because I've learned everything I've had to learn. I've shared
I
everything I've had to share, and it's time for me to go to this wonderful place. And again, I'm not afraid of death either. I'm not crazy about the idea of pain, but the idea of death, I just don't have any fear about it. You know, I do
no.
believe we come back again and again, and I believe it's an amazing, wonderful, beautiful place. And so, if we could all have that energy, I think if we had that energy, we would enjoy life even more, because people are so afraid of death. People are
But exactly.
terrified
You
of
know,
death. No,
and you said, and people are afraid. Dog, cat, elephant, anything else in nature accepts it as the natural course of our
right,
lives.
right, right. But we are just petrified. And I think I used to be a hospice volunteer, which
Mm.
I really love doing. It's not for everybody, but I feel very peaceful, in that role. And there were people who were just so afraid, just so scared. And um, I just have a sense of peace about it. And I think we'd enjoy our everyday lives more if we could all have that sort of sense of
I
peace.
think so. I think so.
Yeah.
You know, one of the stories that I share in the book is Tracy coming back from the hospital after his experience. At the time, he and his wife Alice were managing a large retirement community in the Springfield, Massachusetts area. That's hard to say if you have a lisp, Massachusetts.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. And he saw a gentleman, an elderly gentleman, head in hands, over a table, kind of praying. Tracy gingerly walked over to him, and the man looked up, and Tracy told him of his experience. The man brightened up, thanked Tracy, went upstairs to the room where his wife was laying, dying. The word is that when he shared Tracy's experience with his wife, it was the first time she smiled in many weeks.
Oh,
She ultimately passed away very shortly after that, but so peacefully.
that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, that just shares the power of getting this message out there.
exactly. And
You know,
how
there,
lucky am I that I met
oh,
Tracy and
what a,
I can
what a,
share this.
what a job you get to get up and do every day. Some people
Oh,
go and they sit behind a desk and type all day. You get to share this amazing story with lots of
oh,
people.
it's fabulous. It's fabulous.
So, is there any other story or two that you can tell us from the book that will it entice people to go and get the book and read the whole thing, but just share a little bit more about a story or experience?
Well, yeah, the one piece is that after I met Tracy and he showed me his photography after we finished with our interview, he showed me some of the photographs he had taken recently, um, and he gifted me a photo of a butterfly on a lilac bush. My mother's two favorite things, lilacs and butterflies. Oh my. Okay, so this was wonderful in itself. Of course, he had no way of knowing that. Joe and I packed up. Joe chose to let his buddies ride off on the bikes that day, on their bicycles. And these are bicycles pedaling, not motorbikes. And he and I drove from Cape Charles to Virginia Beach. And we were walking along the boardwalk. We had checked into our hotel. We're walking along the boardwalk. The water's on our left. The hotel was on our right. We're walking, and a cold wind blew up. It had been windy, it had been cool, but all of a sudden I looked at Joe. I looked to my left. He was on my left, and I said, "We really need to go in now. Now." And made an abrupt right turn to go into what I thought was going to be our hotel. Now, let me back up. One of the photos that Tracy had showed me was a photograph of two glass doors that were the entrance to a restaurant on a beach somewhere. Tracy stood in front of those doors, took a photo of the beach, the sand, the water reflected in those glass doors. Tracy was not in the reflection. Everything behind him was reflected in the doors. Tracy was not. Joe and I are now in Virginia Beach. You know where this is going. We make an abrupt right turn, and I was facing those doors. And after I got my jaw back into place, I looked at my husband and I said, "Joe, I'm writing this guy's book."
That gives me chills.
It was absolutely meant to be. And actually, that's the photo on the cover of the book. And that's why Reflections from Beyond. It's a highly stylized version of the photo.
Right. That's okay, everybody. Everyone go out and get the book. I'm showing you the lovely cover right there.
What we're doing also, because you mentioned hospice, for every book sold, we're making a donation to our local hospice of Western Connecticut and Healing Hearts Foundation, which has helped us and continues to help us here in Newtown and surrounding areas, and really all over the country, people who have been affected by the Newtown tragedy, and actually anyone who is affected. It's, I think, unusual for a hospice to continue with the care after the passing of someone.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
God bless you for doing that.
So a lot of good comes out of Tracy's experience.
So, CJ, tell us some of the type of places you go to speak about your book and this topic, and a few of the questions people tend to ask you when you go and connect with them.
I connect with spiritual centers. I connect at Unitarian Universalist churches. I connect at synagogues. Hopefully I'll be connecting with this group of nurses at the hospital and other medical professionals. I connected with, I had a seminar, and my own doctor asked me if I would do a seminar in his office.
That's fantastic.
Anyone who is open to and ready to learn more about NDEs, near-death experiences, and to discuss. What people ask me, which is interesting because we launched the book here in Newtown at the library, and people were very, very anxious, yes, to ask me questions, but more than that, they wanted to share their experiences, all of their experiences with another realm. With I saw my father who passed away 3 years ago, or one woman who came up to me and asked me after I was finished speaking, her name is Mariah, she came up to me and said, "Did you know there was a woman behind you?" I said, "No." She said, "It was your mother. She wanted me to tell you that she's so proud of you." These are the stories, these are the things that come out. Somehow, Tracy's story and the way I present it create a safe haven for discussing. I've spoken to, it's an international organization called the Death Cafe.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah. Yes, well, I've spoken at Death Cafe.
Oh, that's great.
Not really spoken specifically about Reflections from Beyond, right, but spoken about that which I've learned through my work with Tracy and others.
Do you want to tell people briefly what Death Cafe is? Because I know at first people are like, what?
What? Yeah. Death Cafe is a group of people who gather because they're interested in the subject of death. There's nothing morbid about it. There's no downer about it. It is as Lynette and I said, it is a natural part of our being, and let's discuss and let's find out more about it.
Or a
And
cycle.
it's a fascinating experience.
Yeah. Good. Oh, CJ, this has been wonderful.
Oh, this has been great.
How fast the time goes. Our hour is almost up. If there was something that you would like to leave the viewers with, what would that message be? What would you like to tell them?
The message would be, quite honestly, to help me share Tracy's message on our site, cjgolden.com. Is that a good plug? Was that subtle?
Get the word out there.
On our site, cjgolden.com, we have a page dedicated to Tracy's mission. I have an interview of myself with Tracy. Tracy came back wanting us to understand that God is a God of choice, that we are free to honor our God and pray to our God however it is comfortable for us, whatever religion we feel comfortable choosing, for lack of a better word, right now. Not all agree with Tracy, but he says that religion, in his idea, is a man-made tool to help us find a relationship with God, and we are to honor that relationship. And while we are here on earth, to live our lives with kindness. Those are the three messages. Other than everyone purchasing the book, other than my going wherever I can, and I can't go everywhere, other than Tracy going where he can and he can't go everywhere, we need everyone's help to spread that message. So my message to everyone is to help us join Tracy's mission. Share the video, share the book, share the idea, share Tracy's message.
Wonderful.
Oh, and we've lost her again. But she's so cute. Do you notice how good she looks? And no matter what pose she stops at. I think it's time to close the show. I've given my closing message. I thank you, Lynette, and the Conscious Evolution Network for having me on. cjgolden.com, author at cjgolden.com, and I thank you all. And if I can figure it out, I'm going to close the show.